Providence Canyon's rust-red gullies plunge as deep as 150 feet. A striking man-made miniature Grand Canyon, formed by careless farming in less than 2 centuries, a geological oddity few places in the world can claim. Do you know that Lake Lanier hides entire drowned towns, tree-lined streets, and a submerged highway beneath its surface, turning Georgia's lakes into a ghostly underwater archive? Hidden among Georgia's coastal plain lies one of the continent's largest and most intact tidal marsh systems that helped shape the city of Savannah. Do you know that the marshes around the Savannah River and the nearby barrier islands create an estuary so rich it sustained colonial trade, rice plantations, and the city's unique urban plan? Savannah's historic district is a living museum where 22 squares, oak-canopied streets, and stately homes whisper centuries of stories. Every square, from Forsyth Park to Reynolds, threads together architecture, memory, and the smoky scent of Spanish moss. Cobblestone lanes lead past Federal, Georgian, and Victorian facades that survived wars, fires, and the march of time. One surprising secret is that many of the city's grand mansions were built with bricks from nearby rivers and recycled ship timbers. Walkers find hidden gardens tucked behind ironwork gates and small museums that preserve the city's maritime and literary heritage. Savannah's port linked the city to the Atlantic world, making its streets a crossroads of cultures, cuisines, and contraband. Stories of pirates and planters sit beside the quieter histories of enslaved artisans whose craftsmanship built the city's beauty. Plaques and preserved buildings point to free Black communities and early civil rights struggles that reshaped the South. One block leads naturally to another, so a stroll from the riverfront drifts you through the Cathedral Basilica to the whispering alleys of Chippewa Square. Benches, lamplight, and the measured cadence of horse-drawn carriages make it easy to imagine bygone eras slipping into the present. Savannah's culinary scene is woven into its history, with coastal seafood, low-country boils, and recipes passed down through generations. Small cafes sit beneath live oaks where locals trade news, and visitors taste the city's layered flavors. Contemporary galleries and rooftop bars. Surprise! They keep the past alive. Stone Mountain in Georgia, USA rests as the largest exposed granite dome in North America and bears the world's largest bas-relief carving etched into its face. Do you know that Stone Mountain's granite slowly cooled deep underground, nearly 300 to 400 million years ago, preserving a hidden record of tectonic fury that helped shape the Appalachian chain? Far from being just a giant rock with a controversial sculpture, the mountain shelters rare microhabitats, pockets of lichens and wildflowers that cling to shallow soils in rock fissures. Underneath those sun-baked slopes, veins of pink feldspar and quartz glitter, and tiny crevices host specialized invertebrates and heat-tolerant reptiles adapted to granite outcrop life. The mountain's summit offers an uninterrupted panorama that once guided Native American paths and now hides a little-known meteorological quirk: sudden wind shifts that can be strikingly different from conditions in the valleys below. These microclimates allow plant species more typical of cooler northern ridgelines to survive in sheltered pockets, creating botanical surprises you won't expect just outside a major U.S. city. Beneath the surface, the mountain's history is written in intrusive dikes and fractures, visible to anyone who hikes the trails, telling of magma, pressure, and the slow peeling away of softer rock. At night, the exposed granite radiates heat, subtly altering insect and amphibian behavior in the ways researchers are still mapping, making Stone Mountain a living laboratory for urban ecology. Less advertised is the mountain's role as an ancient crossroads. Native American markings and colonial quarry scars interlace with Civil War stories, layering culture over geology. In this segment, we'll trace those transitions, the science beneath your feet, the fragile life on its base, and the human stories etched into its slopes, and uncover why Stone Mountain Park is more than a monumental rock. Stay with us as we climb from hidden crevice to panoramic ridge, revealing the strange, astonishing details that most passers-by never notice. We'll meet the keepers of those secrets, park rangers, geologists, and community elders who know the stories of storms, quarrying, and quiet recoveries after decades of human pressure. By the end, you'll see Stone Mountain, not as a single image carved in stone, but as a layered landscape where geology, biology, and memory collide in surprising ways. Chattahoochee National Forest shelters rare high-elevation sphagnum bogs and plant communities that survived since the Ice Age, pockets almost unique in the southeastern United States. Do you know Chattahoochee National Forest gives birth to the Chattahoochee River, the single watershed that eventually feeds millions of people in Atlanta and reshapes cities hundreds of miles downstream? Walk under tunneled rhododendron and you'll find cascading rivers such as Anna Ruby Falls that hide geological stories in their plunge pools. Hike higher, and the Appalachian Trail threads across Blood Mountain, offering exposed ridgelines where ancient forests meet alpine-like balds. The forest is not one place, but a mosaic of wildernesses, from rugged ridges to quiet trout streams. Those streams support native brook trout and an underworld of salamanders that biologists still study for clues about long-term climate survival. In spring, the ridgelines erupt in mountain laurel and flame azalea, a botanical festival that signals migration corridors for birds and insects. Autumn turns the canopy into a patchwork of fire, maples, oaks, and hickories blazing while mist coils through the hollows. Hidden old-growth pockets contain trees whose trunks record centuries of human stories and climate cycles. Local communities rely on the forest for livelihoods, stories, and seasonal traditions, linking people to the land in ways invisible on a map. As you move from waterfall to ridge to riverhead, the landscape reveals how connected every pool, trail, and old growth stand truly is. And beneath the surface, mosses and microbes keep archives of past climates that may help predict the forest's future. Stay with us, because we're about to follow the water from its first trickle here into the arteries of the Southeast and uncover the hidden species and decisions that will decide whether this extraordinary forest endures. You'll meet the scientists, rangers, and heirs of these mountains, and learn why saving a single bog in Chattahoochee National Forest could ripple into cities and ecosystems far beyond its borders. The Okefenokee Swamp in Georgia, USA, harbors peat that has preserved ancient trees and rare orchids for millennia. a natural archive almost unmatched anywhere on Earth. Do you know that Providence Canyon is called the Little Grand Canyon? Despite forming largely from 19th century soil erosion caused by farming, not tectonic uplift. From those slow landscapes we arrive in Atlanta, where Martin Luther King Jr. was born in 1929. He grew up on Auburn Avenue, a neighborhood that would become the backbone of his moral and strategic life. King entered Morehouse College at 15, launching an intellectual and spiritual trajectory that led him from Southern pulpits to global statuas. In 1964, at 35, he received the Nobel Peace Prize, becoming the youngest laureate at that time. Today, his birth home, Ebenezer Baptist Church, and the King Center form a contiguous story you can walk through in Atlanta. Each site links private memory with public organization, showing how family, faith, and strategy interwove in his leadership. Many people overlook King's early work in the Albany Movement in southwest Georgia, a campaign that taught activists crucial lessons about coalition and discipline. His tomb at the King Center stands beneath words that insist visitors continue the struggle, rooting national memory in Georgia soil. Walking from home to church to offices of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference makes the movement's architecture tangible. The astonishing truth is that Georgia's rivers, swamps, and streets all played roles in the story of civil rights, connecting land and life. To follow Martin Luther King Jr., here is to trace how place made purpose and how one state's contradictions helped forge a national conscience. Around Atlanta, unexpected anecdotes persist. King insisted on maintaining his ties to Georgia's communities, even as he gained global prominence, returning often to preach, plan, and mourn with those who shaped him. Those repeated homecomings remind us that the struggle was rooted in neighborhoods and fields, and that his legacy remains a living, contested conversation across Georgia today. Hartwell Lake's shoreline stretches over 962 miles and hides a mosaic of cypress domes and fingered coves rare among American reservoirs. Do you know Hartwell Lake was carved from the Savannah River and now cradles submerged forests and forgotten roadways that surface when waters fall? Fishermen prize these hidden structures because they concentrate bass and catfish fish, turning the lake into one of the Southeast's most fertile fishing grounds. Tournaments draw anglers who swear the lake's channels, and umps hold secrets that change with each season. Birdwatchers come for the wintering flocks and for sightings of bald eagles that nest on remote islands and cliff-lined banks. At dawn, fog lifts off the water and reveals herons, osprey, and small flags that trace the river's ancient migration routes. Beyond recreation, Hartwell's submerged past connects visitors to local history. When drought lowers the lake, foundations and stone walls emerge like time capsules. Those relics tell stories of farming communities and antebellum homesteads swallowed by the reservoir's creation, linking the present shoreline to the lives that came before. From Hartwell, the landscape leads east toward the Piedmont's rolling hills, connecting travelers to wineries, granite quarries, and the hidden waterfalls upstream. Exploring Hartwell Lake is to read a layered map, geology, history, and human recreation, printed across water and island. Stay close as we follow one forgotten causeway and trace the river's journey from dam to delta, uncovering the surprising ways this reservoir shapes life on both sides of the border. You'll discover pockets of rare plant communities and the resilience of wildlife that reclaim shoreline when people step back. By the time we leave Hartwell, you'll see how a man-made lake became a secret amplifier of natural processes and regional culture. Piedmont Park's 189-acre green space crowns Atlanta's ridge with an unusual urban meadow that shelters remnant longleaf pines and a seasonal wetland bird habitat rarely found inside a major American city. Do you know that its 17-acre Lake Lanier is an engineered jewel that became the city's unofficial observatory for migrating waterfowl and prompt community festivals? On any morning, the park turns into a living classroom where joggers, yogis, and ornithologists share trails bordered by magnolia and oak canopies. A hidden network of preserved stone outcrops and Civil War-era markers reveals layers of history underfoot that most visitors pass without noticing. Piedmont's Great Meadow and Concert Bowl still hosts seasonal festivals. Yet it's the quiet corners, the holly-lined pathways, and the dogwoods that hold the park's lesser-known magic. Volunteer stewards have reintroduced native grasses and pollinator gardens here, establishing one of the city's most successful urban ecology projects. From the park's north edge, the skyline of Midtown rises like a modern amphitheater, connecting green space to glass towers in a rare urban park dialogue. That visual link is more than scenery. It's deliberate planning that feeds into the Atlanta Beltline and its promise of continuous green corridors. Walk east and the park dissolves into quiet residential streets where community gardens and historic bungalows frame local life. These neighborhoods funnel visitors toward the park and then onward, creating a loop of discovery that will lead us next to the Beltline's art-filled trails. Children launch paper boats at Lanier, while elders recall Emery and Olmsted's early visions, blending personal memory with landscape design. Even in the heat of summer, the park's tree-lined promenades hold cool, shaded microclimates thanks to carefully preserved canopy cover. Piedmont Park is both a public commons and a living laboratory for how cities can heal ecological fragmentation. And if you listen closely near sunset, you can hear the layered soundtrack of the city: distant traffic, laughter from the dog park, and the low thrum of live music from the festival lawn. This is a place where Atlanta's urban pulse meets quiet nature, setting the stage for the Beltline's next artistic chapter. Stay with us as we follow the path that leaves Piedmont's oak shadows and winds toward painted rails, pop-up galleries, and the city's evolving public art story. Centennial Olympic Park in Atlanta preserves 21 acres of downtown green space, transformed from an industrial scar for the 1996 Olympic Games. Do you know the park's fountain of rings can launch hundreds of jets in precise choreography, making it one of America's most interactive fountains? Beneath the lawn, designers left traces of old rail beds and foundations, turning the site's industrial past into a visible layer of memory. A planting palette inspired by Georgia's Piedmont, oaks, native grasses, and pollinator-friendly bulbs turns the park into an urban wildlife corridor. Each spring, the cherry trees and magnolias bloom in a burst that draws locals and visitors alike. Yet the park was designed first as civic infrastructure. Its stormwater gardens and permeable beds manage runoff from surrounding streets, easing floods while creating lush, walkable spaces in the city core. The park's central axis was planned to link sporting legacy with cultural anchors, literally pointing visitors toward the Georgia Aquarium and world of Coca-Cola. Seasonal festivals convert lawns into concert venues, but subtle lighting and nocturnal-friendly planting also protect the park's nighttime ecology. Plaques, memorials, and the Victory Column tell Olympic stories, while benches and shady groves reveal the quieter tale of urban recovery and everyday life. From the Fountain of Rings, a short walk connects you to the Beltline and to neighborhood corridors where murals and markets extend the park's influence. In a city shaped by highways, Centennial Olympic Park demonstrates how one well-placed green room can catalyze broader urban change and community gathering. Our tour now follows that green thread outward, tracing how the park's momentum sparked new public spaces across Atlanta's neighborhoods. Local guides will tell you small stories: an abandoned plaque, a tree planted by a school, small human threads woven into the landscape. Those details make Centennial Olympic Park less a monument and more a living civic room where history and daily life intersect. Sea Island's low salt marshes, live oak canopies, and barrier dunes form one of the most intense coastal ecosystems left on the southeastern United States coast. Do you know Sea Island shelters nesting loggerhead turtles and an ancient maritime forest that scientists say helps stabilize coastlines in ways most people don't see? Walk its quiet beaches, and you'll find fossilized shells and driftwood that tell stories of centuries of storms, trade, and migration. Beneath the surface, tidal creeks run like hidden arteries, nourishing nurseries for shrimp, blue crabs, and the migratory birds that link Sea Island to the salt marshes of neighboring Little St. Simons. The island's private preserves and carefully managed dunes make it a rare refuge where maritime forest meets Atlantic surf with minimal development. Once you trace the live oak avenue from the lodge past the old shell road, the landscape folds into salt flats that feed both local communities and the oyster bars of nearby St. Simons. More than a luxury getaway, Sea Island is an ecological crossroads that sits between the barrier islands and the inland rivers flowing toward Savannah. That position made it strategically important in history and recently visible on the global stage when world leaders gathered here decades ago, revealing how a small island can influence far larger conversations. Guides on Sea Island point out tiny, almost secret dune plants that grip sand with roots like anchors, slowing erosion faster than any seawall. From these fragile foundations, the island reaches outward, connected by tidal chains to Jekyll and the Cumberland Sounds, forming a living necklace of habitats. At low tide, You can watch birds turn the mudflats into a banquet and feel how each island contributes to a larger coastal rhythm. Follow that rhythm to old boatyards and salt-scented coastal kitchens nearby. Lake Lanier cradles one of the Southeast's most unusual freshwater landscapes, where standing hardwoods and submerged roads emerge through mist. Do you know Lake Lanier covers the remnants of entire neighborhoods, cemeteries, and the original town of Oscarville under its calm surface? Created when Buford Dam backed up the Chattahoochee in the 1950s, the lake blends engineered scale with an eerie, natural-looking ecosystem. Boaters skim across glassy coves, while kayakers slip between rooted trunks that hint at lives paused rather than vanished. In summer, the shoreline crowds with weekenders from Atlanta. But in quiet mornings, fog and reflections make the lake feel ancient. Underwater, concrete foundations and telephone poles remain, drawing divers and storytellers who piece together the lake's layered history. Fishermen prize its base-rich waters, where submerged timber creates ideal habitat and surprising pockets of cold, oxygen-rich refuges. Yet that same complexity challenges rescue crews and complicates conservation, as fluctuating levels reveal artifacts, then swallow them again. Developed parks like Lanier Islands arc into the lake, turning reclaimed land into recreation loops that stitch human life to water. From here, the lake funnels into the Chattahoochee, tying Lanier's fate to Atlanta's water needs and to broader watershed health. Invasive species and siltation quietly reshape shorelines, prompting scientists to study sediment patterns and seek sustainable shoreline management. Local legends persist, stories of lost houses glimpsed beneath waves, of ballrooms and schoolhouses frozen in a watery past. At dusk, herons and ospreys silhouette against ridgelines, reminding visitors this engineered lake has become essential wildlife habitat. From Lanier's marinas, you can trace the mountain-fed creeks that once carved valleys now drowned and repurposed as leisure landscape. This dual identity, utility and mystery, is central to Lake Lanier's grip on Georgians and on curious travelers. Soon we'll follow one shoreline to an old town site, then climb toward the North Georgia mountains, where the water begins its journey. Pine Mountain protects E3FDC. Roosevelt State Park, Georgia's largest state park in the United States. A rare New Deal-era forested landscape, preserving miles of mixed hardwood and pine ridge. Do you know Callaway Gardens in Pine Mountain hosts one of the nation's most concentrated displays of seasonal azaleas and a butterfly conservatory that draws migratory species each spring? Walk the loop from Callaway's manicured gardens up into the wild trails of F.D. Roosevelt State Park, and you move from cultivated spectacle into ancient ridgetop forest. Dowdell's Knob, a weathered outcrop inside the park, is where President Roosevelt famously picnicked. And today, its sweeping overlooks frame miles of rolling pines and hardwood hollows. Follow the Pine Mountain Trail, and the ridgeline becomes a living spine, linking botanical displays with black bears, turkeys, and the whisper of longleaf pines. The trail's quiet pockets reveal rare plant communities, mountain laurels and native azaleas that feel misplaced 100 miles south of the Appalachians. From Callaway's serene Robin Lake, the scene lifts to scenic overlooks that make the human-made gardens seem like an introduction to the wild beyond. Visitors who come for the butterflies often stay for sunset views that turn the ridgeline into an orange silhouette, then follow country lanes to historic Warm Springs and the stories of FDR. Local guides will point out how conservation efforts here stitch together private estates, public parks, and wildlife corridors, so each patch of forest matters for migrating species. If you think you know Georgia from its cities, Pine Mountain will quietly rearrange that picture with rhododendrons, red clay, and the patience of centuries-old pines. And as one site closes its gates for the day, another opens a path. Pushing north along the ridge leads naturally toward the hardwood hollows that segue into the broader Appalachian foothills. So begin with the cultivated brilliance of Callaway, climb the trails of F.D. Roosevelt State Park, and stand at Dowdell's Knob to understand why this little ridge matters. Each step connects a garden, to a forest, to a history, And by the time you leave Pine Mountain, you carry a memory stitched together from rare plant blooms, presidential echoes, and ridgetop horizons. Blue Ridge's mountain laurel-draped ridgelines contain one of the largest contiguous temperate hardwood forests in the eastern United States, where trees centuries old create cathedral-like canopies. Do you know that Blue Ridge is threaded by the Toccoa River, whose cold springs fuel a stretch known locally as a trout factory, sustaining native brook and rainbow trout through summer months? The town itself is a ribbon of galleries, antique shops, and riverfront cafes that feel lifted from a different era. From its depot, the Blue Ridge Scenic Railway follows the river north to McKaysville and the twin town of Copperhill, where state lines blur and stories of mining and railroads meet. McKaysville's Main Street sits literally on the border with Tennessee, and a walk across the pedestrian bridge is a stroll between two states and two histories. Just south of Blue Ridge, Ellijay crowns Georgia's apple country with orchards, cider mills, and festivals that turn autumn into a county-wide celebration. Routes between these towns reveal waterfalls tucked into hollows, like secret postcards framed by rhododendron and moss. Drive a little farther, and the road climbs toward Brasstown Bald, Georgia's highest peak, where the panorama folds into distant ridges and long, layered shadows. Dahlonega, to the southwest, keeps the gold rush alive with museums, vineyards, and a downtown that trades in history and hospitality. You'll learn how trout stocking, fly fishing traditions, and conservation efforts have made the Toccoa a classroom for river restoration. There's a rhythm here. Markets at dawn, engines of old trains sighing in the afternoons, and porch conversations that outlast sunsets. And behind those porches stand unmarked trails that lead to overlooks where, if you're quiet, you can hear the ridge breathing. Later in the film, we'll trace a single river from its headwaters above Blue Ridge down to the valleys where towns bloom along its banks. You'll discover how a simple line on a map becomes a corridor of commerce, culture, and conservation in places that many drive past without ever slowing down. We began this journey high on Brasstown Bald, where rivers split and the state's ancient rocks reveal the first whispers of Georgia's story. From there, the Blue Ridge ridgelines funnel you toward Tallulah Gorge, a 1,000-foot incision that forces water and human imagination into narrow channels. Follow the river out of the mountains, and it whispers into Providence Canyon, an accidental crimson cathedral, born of human hands and time's impatience. That same soil and climate give rise to the Vidalia onion fields nearby, a curious agricultural miracle whose sweetness is legally protected and tied to a place name. Head south, and the land flattens into the Okefenokee, one of North America's last intact blackwater swamps, where peat and tannin turn water to ink and pitcher plants wait for rain. From its mirrored cypress knees, you can trace the coastline east to the Sea Islands, where Jekyll and Cumberland keep ghostly dunes, ancient live oaks, and feral horses that still roam like relics of early voyages. Along the coast, Savannah's squares hang heavy with Spanish moss and memory, a city that has kept its streets as a living atlas of colonial ambition and cultural resilience. Just inland, Warm Springs tells a quieter, personal chapter. The pools where Franklin Roosevelt sought restoration, anchoring a political and human story in Georgia's thermal rhythms. Tie these places together, and you see Georgia not as a single landscape, but a series of startling juxtapositions. Mountains folding into canyons, farms yielding to swamps, cities breathing with the sea. Carry this map home. Each turn in Georgia hides a secret shaped by geology, human hands, and time, waiting for you to discover the next impossible thing.